Hey guys, today I'm back with another review, and today we are going to be checking out 3 new mouse pads, and these are going to be mouse pads that are brand new from a company, meaning that this is their first ever release of a mouse pad, and those 3 mouse pads are going to be the NPC from Ninjutso, the Ninja from Kurosan, and then lastly we do have the Focus Ambition. So let's get started. Starting off with the prices of these pads, the NPC is going to be the cheapest on this lineup, and that's going to come in at 45 USD, and then the Ninja and the Ambition pad is going to be $5 more, coming in at $50. As for the sizes, the NPC is going to be the smallest, coming in at 470 by 410 millimeters, and the other pads are going to come in a more traditional 490 by 420 size. As for the bases of these pads, the NPC has a pour-on base, while the Kurosan has a pretty modified version of Alpha Cell, but I'll get into that later on. And then the Focus Ambition also has a Rogers prawn base. As for the softness, the NPC is a soft, while the Ninja and the Focus Ambition have a more mid-like base, with the Kurosan feeling just a tiny bit softer. As for the quality of the pads, each and one of them are pretty exceptional. The NPC definitely has a very artisan feel to it, with the very close stitched and kind of just very minimal stitching that is below the surface. The Kurosan is also well stitched. It's not going to be as nice as the NPC, but it's definitely nice for what it is. And as you can see, it does have that nice little white stitching. The Focus pad also kind of has a artisan like stitching, but to me, I wasn't very fond of it just because it is raised above the surface a bit, and you can definitely feel that in game. Let's first start off with the Kurosan, as this is the most interesting pad out of the lineup. I'm not saying the other ones are, but this just feels the most unique, just has a very unique surface when compared to the other 2 mouse pads. First of all, huge props for the actual design of the pad. I do think it looks pretty clean, especially with the logo down here. The logo is going to be kind of set onto the pad, meaning that you can actually feel it, while the actual design of the pad is going to be printed on it, so you won't be able to feel that in game at all. As I said before, the quality is going to be great when it comes to stitching, and it is very nicely done in this contrasting white look. It makes the whole pad really stand out. The actual base is going to be pretty unique from the other pads. This is Alpha Cell, but as you can see, it does look slightly different to a traditional Alpha Cell, and this is because they did modify it a bit, and they did modify it for the better, so you're no longer going to have any air bubbles when you're putting this down, due to the lack of the actual, I guess, spikes or dots actually being raised above. And another thing that they did change is the actual rebound of Alpha Cell was pretty horrible. It kind of felt like memory foam, but this pad, and it is a slightly harder pad, the rebound time is going to be pretty fast if you can get it to rebound, just because it is a mid pad. So how does this pad actually feel in game? And it is going to be a slightly faster pad if you're coming from a control pad or something like that, but to my surprise, it's not as fast as I was expecting it. A lot of people said that this is going to be replacing their Raiden, or feels close to a Raiden, but at first it does feel like a Raiden. It is pretty fast, and then once it breaks down, it does start to slow down and start to feel more like a Hayate Otsu. So now it does feel pretty balanced. You still get a lot of that speed, but with that speed you're also getting a lot of control. So this is actually going to be a perfect mousepad for also tack shooters, since the initial friction is going to be pretty low, but you still have enough dynamic friction to help you stop. Quick little thing to report, I do believe this pad does have a humidity issue. When I was playing with this pad and it was very humid in my room, I did notice the pad slowed down enough to where it was actually noticeable. So I don't know if that's just a problem with my copy or something like that, but that's just something I have to report about the pad. But other than the issue I just talked about, the pad is pretty much perfect. I do like all the things they've done with the pad, especially with the new and updated, more modified Alpha Cell, and the actual design of the pad, and especially the actual feel of the pad. I do think if you want a Otsu replacement, then this will be the perfect pad for you. Now onto my second favorite pad from this whole lineup, and that's going to be the Ninjatsu MPC. Like I said before when I first talked about the actual stitching, the stitching is going to be great on this pad. It is below the surface, super thin and minimal, almost compares to Artisan, but it's not all the way there, and it is using authentic Rogers pour-on. So Ninjutso puts this pad in between the Zero and the Saturn, which I do think is a perfect description for this mousepad, since this mousepad does feel like a blend of those 2 mouse pads, taking the best from both of those pads. The initial friction for a controlled focus pad is going to be pretty low, and the dynamic friction is going to be kind of closer to a Saturn, feeling very controlled and just very locked in. And the stopping power is also going to feel closer to a Saturn, so you're going to have a lot of control when it comes to the dynamic friction. But with the initial friction, it's going to feel closer to a Zero. So if you like pads like that, or just want a blend of the Zero and the Saturn Pro, then this is going to be the mouse pad for you. But other than that, this is just a very solid mouse pad. You can't really go wrong with it, especially with the quality. Like I said before, it's using Poron, has very nice stitch edges. The sizing might be an issue for some people. This pad is 470 by 410, which is going to be closer to a size of like a Zowie GSR, but for me this wasn't a issue at all. So just in all, this is a really great, just good mousepad. So the final mousepad on our list is going to be the Focus Ambition. This is at the bottom of the list in terms of how much I like it. That's going to be for a couple of reasons that I will get into later on. The quality is going to be great on this mousepad. It does have a traditional kind of Poron base, and it is a mid softness. The stitching is just alright. It is kind of artisan-like, but in certain areas it is raised above the surface. So if you are sensitive to stuff like that, you will definitely be noticing that. If you have noticed, I do have another mousepad underneath it, and that's going to be the Lethal Gaming Gear Venus Pro. And the main reason this is on my desk is because these mousepads do feel pretty close. And if you do look at the actual surface under like a microscope or something, these will look pretty much the same. The main thing is the focus pad is going to feel slower and more muddier and just more controlled in general than the Lethal Gaming Gear Venus Pro. This also does feel more controlled and just a little bit slower than the Ninjatsu MPC, which is actually very surprising to me. So in terms of the initial friction, it is going to feel more controlled and more muddier, kind of just on the medium side of things. And the dynamic friction is pretty much going to be on the lower side of things. It's going to be pretty good for tracking all that. With that being said, I do think it is a great pad for a certain amount of people. Personally, it's not my favorite. I would rather use the Lethal Gaming Gear Venus just because it does have a little bit more speed to it, which I do enjoy. But if you are someone that likes having more control underneath their mouse, then this would be a great pad for you. With that being said, each one of these pads are good in their own way, just some are better than the others. For example, the Kurosan Ninja is pretty good if you want a speed pad, and then the Ninjatsu MPC is going to be great if you want a slightly faster control pad. And then the Focus is just going to be great if you can't get your hands on a Venus Pro. But anyways, if you guys did enjoy this video, a like and sub would be much appreciated. But I'll see you all in the next one.